Flood myths are common in almost every culture. The story of Noah is not the only one, nor is it the original. All of these myths have common similarities, such as being warned by deities of global destruction and the instruction to build arks to provide life for repopulation. In these myths, a common cause of the destruction is the anger and the wrath of a god or gods. The earliest recorded version of flood myths come from the oldest recorded civilization, which would be ancient Sumer. There are two versions of the flood myth, both telling virtually the same story, adding or maybe subtracting a few details. These texts can be found at the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology and the private Schuyen collection in Norway. Both versions are written in cuneiform on baked clay tablets, to which only fragments now remain. The Pennsylvania tablet is the most complete of the two, though the Schuyen tablet is a little bit older. The Sumerian flood myth is actually a creation myth, but I will focus strictly on the events surrounding the flood. The 5 great cities of the world had done something to displease and anger the gods, so they decided to punish mankind with a great and violent flood. Ziusudra is now introduced. Ziusudra would be the Sumerian Noah. Ziusudra is a god-fearing king who would be chosen by one of the gods to survive. The name of the god has not survived in the Pennsylvania tablet, but the Schuyen tells us that Ziusudra was also a priest of the god Enki. This god warns Ziusudra of the impending flood, but then there is a break in the tablet. It's assumed that the next passage was instructions on how to survive. When the story picks back up, Ziusudra is now in a boat or ark being tossed around by wind on a vast ocean of floodwater. The storm lasted 7 days and 7 nights. On the 8th day, the sun breaks through the clouds, and the storm stops. Ziusudra opens a window and looks out at the world that has now been changed forever. He then sacrifices an ox and a sheep. Now he has gained the favor of the gods, and is blessed with immortality. Why do different cultures all have cataclysmic flood myths? It's clear that at least a few of these myths originate from common sources. Noah and Gilgamesh, for example. But could all of these myths be based off of an actual event? A comet struck the ice cap 12,000 years ago and instantly liquefied mass amounts of ice and sent that water crashing into the ocean. As a result, the sea level rose 400 feet. Could this be the origin of the flood myth? Let's compare the similarities between the Epic of Gilgamesh and Noah's Ark. Utnapishtim is the Babylonian hero, and Noah is the hero from the Hebrew Bible. Both men were selected because they were good and just. Both men were instructed to build arks and gather several samples of plant and animal species. Both arks would have a single door and at least one window. A great rain flooded the world so high that the mountains were submerged. Both arks come to rest on mountains in the Middle East, only a few hundred miles from each other. Noah came to rest on Mount Ararat, while Utnapishtim came to rest on Mount Nasir. Both Utnapishtim and Noah sent out birds in order to see if the land was dry. After exiting the ark, they both sacrificed animals to God. God was pleased and blessed both heroes. Have you ever heard of Göbekli Tepe? Göbekli Tepe is the oldest megalithic site on the planet. It is universally accepted that Göbekli Tepe is 12,000 years old. This puts its creation around the time of the ending of the Ice Age, when sea levels rose almost instantly. Göbekli Tepe throws the whole historical timeline out of whack. Take a look at some of the pillars. They are 3D carved into the stone. This is very sophisticated work. 12,000 years ago, we were only supposed to be hunter-gatherers, spread out throughout the region, living in small tribes. There was no civilization to speak of. So where did Göbekli Tepe come from? And what is its purpose? Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried somewhere around 10 or 11,000 years ago. When you look at some of the pillars, you notice depictions of animals, plants, and humanoids. There does not appear to be any type of pattern here. Butchered remains of animals are also found at Göbekli Tepe. It would appear that the makers had also performed sacrifices of animals depicted on the pillars. I put all this together and suddenly it hits me. Göbekli Tepe may very well be Noah's Ark. Göbekli Tepe lies in Turkey and is a stone's throw away from Mount Ararat and Mount Nasir. It's not possible that sea rise could reach the levels that would have been needed to submerge Mount Ararat and Mount Nasir completely. It's highly unlikely that an actual ark ever came to rest on these mountains. Gobekli Tepe, though, is a record that is literally written in stone. Could it be a time capsule meant to keep a record of what came before the flood? I don't know, but it sure is intriguing.